All right, good morning, everyone. To our students, two students here and to our students online. My name is Caleb Lewis. I am the Director of Career Services. Thank you so much for joining us here for our ProfessionalQuest Government and Government Contracting. Today, we're going to hear from three industry experts on the government and government contracting sector. So I'd like to have Nicole introduce herself.
Hey everybody, my name is Nicole Peters. I'm a lead solutions engineer at Salesforce. I am a George Mason alumni, did soccer here for 4 years, and I was a government international politics teacher. Really excited to be here.
Janine.
Hi, I'm Janine Callahan. I'm the Senior Vice President of Masterpiece Services for a company called Masterpiece Solutions. We are a government contractor. I'm also an alum. I'm a graduate of the Masters in Technology Management program.
And last but not least, Alana.
Falar Bradley, I'm the CEO and owner of Exceed. Exceed is a small business company. You're a hub zone. You're based in Maryland. I'm also alum in 2005 from technology management class.
Great, thank you. So my first question for you is, how did you get into or fall into the government or government contracting space? So Nicole, if you'd like to start.
Sure. So being a government major, I was always interested in working for or with the government. I just did not understand what that meant going graduating school. So I started off actually as a government contractor. What that means is I was working for the Department of State, but as a contractor. So I wasn't an employee. I was contracted to help them with certain aspects of their administration, mainly in short, I was scanning boxes that were coming from overseas just to make sure that all of our IT, all of our hard drives were coming in. And that is actually what got me into IT. I realized that, I didn't really want to be the end user. I wanted to be building these systems that would allow us to scan the boxes overseas, would allow us to, help our troops or help our foreign service officers with their mission. And that's kind of what made me transition from school, my first job, into government.
So I started my career working for the government. I worked for the Department of the Navy. That was a natural progression. I grew up in the Navy. My dad was a career naval service member. And so it was a natural progression. I spent about 6.5 years out of college working for the Naval Sea Systems Command at the time. And then at that point, I transitioned to working for a contractor. And initially it was, they were supporting the Navy, but then I moved from beyond that and then had great opportunities. It was a smaller company. So that was a really great thing for me to have the ability to move from more about financial contracts for project control type role into project and program management. And then that's sort of what I
Very similar with both of you guys. Working pretty much in technology initially, was working in IT, technology, and telecom. And we were one of the contractors for the program side of it. So I worked over there and then slowly, gradually looking into how I can be entrepreneur myself and looking into opportunities out there. So that's how I grew into it. Before coming into government contracting, I was also had a startup company in healthcare that we sold it. And then I was like, okay, now I need to work on the government side of it. So that's how I landed into government. And we're working in government since for now 40 years, basically.
So my next question for you all is, can you tell me what a typical day or a typical week looks like in the government or government contracting sector? So Alana, switch it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as in any other companies that you work for. It can be 9 to 5, or it can be depending upon what kind of a job that you're looking into it. As a role as a technology, and if you're looking into it from the entry-level positions and stuff like that, I would start with that. Entry-level position, you learn, you basically spend more time to understand and basically put your effort into it from those perspectives. And I think the majority of, I would say, is it all depends upon yourself, but it's a very much from a perspective, I would say, is give you the bandwidth of learning, education and stuff like that. I think that's a very much same as any other industry that we would get into in the internet side of it. So it all depends on what, and in the government contracting also, it's not one thing. There are so many different flavors in government contracting. The GovCon industry, is it a services company or is it a product company? It all depends on where you want to go. So I think I didn't give you the answer, but it's the same as any depends on the company itself.
Your experience?
Yeah, so I'm gonna share two different experiences, right? Because in my current company, what we do, so the government outsources their technology workforce in large part, right? The company that I'm with right now, we provide cleared software engineers. And so those software engineers in large part go to a customer site and they are hands-on keyboard pretty much all day, other than meetings, usually in some sort of secure environment, working and on building systems that support our customer's mission, right? So there's starting to see more remote work, but a lot of it is going on site and learning and being part of a team. And I would say, speaking specifically to our entry level folks, early career folks, there are not a lot there in that environment, right? So it can be a great opportunity to get a great mentor and learning experience. So I would say that, for the people that are in my company now, that would be their experience. For me personally, I found that I was internal to the company rather than customer facing. So once I left the Navy, went into working for a contractor, I was part of the internal company infrastructure. And so that was very much involved with helping manage spend plans, how the contracts that we were given, getting staff on those, making sure, that they build what they needed to build, had their charge number. So it was very much those early kind of management tasks. We're all in support of the teams that were directly facing the customer. So two different experiences depending on what you're doing.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna go with two different experiences as well. So before I came to Salesforce, became a solutions engineer. I was a IT management consultant. So what we did is we came in and we just the discovery with customers and help them build kind of an IT roadmap. But what that allowed us to do was it allowed us to see what a lot of day-to-day roles are inside of the actual government. And so you have, on the contract side, you have people inside of the government who have to manage, these billion-dollar contracts from a government perspective and have to, be on top of putting out a solicitation, asking for people to apply to do this work. They have to manage the funding from an internal perspective and manage that against the budget, which, as we all know, changes year after year at Congress's discretion. You have the end users of the technology, right? The day-to-day operations, depending on what agency you're on. So that can look different, obviously depending on that role. But it was really interesting to see, the kind of boots on the ground, what they do day to day. And then just from my perspective as a solutions engineer, what I do day to day is I have calls with customers. I work for federal, that's my sector. Department of Education is one of my customers. We go in, we listen to challenges and pain points. As everyone knows, every company, including the government, has, yes, I call the government a company because it operates similarly to one. We listen to their challenges, their pain points, what their kind of vision is for expansion and modernizing all of their systems. And then we go in, I go back home, write down those requirements, build out a little process map, something for them to visually see. And then I actually get to build out a proof of concept that I go and show to them to say, yes, at this level, this can work, right? Obviously the devil is in the details, but that's kind of an end-to-end process of what I do day to day.
Can you tell us a little bit about what obligation does your work put on you kind of outside the typical work week? If you have federal experience, is there a difference between kind of the government side versus the government contracting? What would you like to start?
Sure. So I've noticed with federal customers, that they seem to have a little bit more of a specific schedule. Obviously depending on the role, but I found that they, 8-9 hours is a pretty predictable day for the customers that I've worked with. When I was doing implementation, so prior to this role, I was actually going into, agencies and building out these systems that I'm now, building concepts for. And that was grueling. I was working Saturdays, I was up late at night. I got to the point where I was taking a development call, learning about a new, data model that we were implementing during my kid's soccer game. And I realized that's not what I wanted to be doing anymore. And so now I hopped over to my new role, which is still, it's definitely expands that 8-9 hour day, but I get to choose when I want to do it. So if I want to, stop at 4:30 and wait until 8:30 and my kids go to bed, so, have a few hours of no emails and also no one asking for chocolate milk at the same time. I get to, work a few hours quietly, which I enjoy. I don't really mind staying up late as long as I get to choose, as long as that's on, my discretion and I have the autonomy to do it.
No, that's great. And being a working mom, that split day, I'm so familiar with it. During the chunk of the time when my son was younger, I was working on a lot of proposals. And so that's another thing that can kind of extend your day. If you're in the contracting realm and you're trying to win new work, right? A lot of that is done after hours. And I just remember, kind of my work day, my chunk of family time, and then the rest of the day. And I think I would echo what you said. I think that oftentimes our customers, our government customers, have a bit more structure, and probably more consistency. And then what I find is that the things that need to get done, the important things that have to happen is more than what can fit in that box,
Yeah.
right? And so the overflow goes to the contractor. Whether it's operational or on-call support, which might be after hours and things, down times. We've in the past had to work maybe split shifts for certain technology roles that need to maintain operational systems. That doesn't happen a lot, that can happen, and it's less apt to happen for early career folks. Just because the broad base of experience is really needed, but it's a great learning opportunity if you can put up with it for a while. Piggybacking on that is a great way to learn what's really critical to customer set.
And then the last thing I would say added to it is like the security aspect of it is huge in GovCon, from background check or anything related to computer use, some of the work we cannot talk, some of the work you cannot share, all those things needs to be abided by the rules. And I think it goes, cybersecurity is everywhere now, and I have seen it in other industries that they're adopting the same methodology and stuff like that. So that's one thing that I have seen and obligated to those kind of things. Yes.
And this is training. Right, and perhaps effort towards certifications. Companies may have budgets that will help pay for the training, but oftentimes you have to carve out the time on your own, right? And so that is, that's one of those things that has a bit of a cost, but there's a big upside. When you keep your technical or business credentials current, when you're maintaining certifications that are in high demand, those can have a return in terms of your compensation and kind of roles you qualify for, and it demonstrates leadership. On the other side, it does really potentially require you to carve out your personal time to study for those things, and this, the stress and anxiety of sitting for the exams and things like that.
So talking kind of a little bit about some of the beyond the scope of your responsibilities. What are the benefits of the government contracting sector?
Oh, yeah. So on the government side, I think the benefits are incredible. They have really great 401k plans. They have a pension. Their health insurance is incredible as well. And I know, we might have in front of mine for every month right now. When you start seeing that come out of your paycheck every month, you start to kind of wonder, well, what's the other side like? I know that's great. I know that, especially on the younger side, you kind of have the ability to shape what the government looks like next, right? I know right now the theme is modernization inside of the government, and what they need for that, right, are fresh ideas and young minds, and they're looking for it. I know it was one of the Salesforce is working with a lot of different agencies to kind of understand how to actively recruit a younger body of employees to bring that innovation to the government.
Yes, I will just echo that and also say that, and this was my experience, and I think it's pretty consistent, that when you start out working for the government, you actually get an opportunity to manage things.
Yes.
And decide things, your span of control is so much broader at a lower experience, right? You know, that can have its challenges as well, but I would say on the contractor side, that that's not necessarily the case, right? You're constrained by what the contract says, and there's layers within a company to, you know, make sure that your corporate due diligence is all happening. But within the government, if you are ambitious and you have goals, you can definitely chart a path that gives you a broad span of control, early leadership opportunities. And I think that's a really remarkable advantage of starting with government. I would also say, I've been in this business for quite a long time as well. And I've certainly seen the ebb and flow of people to the commercial side of things and then back to government. And, you know, there is a level of stability associated with that. And there are maybe times in your life where that's a really valuable thing to have.
And I think there are, I dissect this whole thing. One is working for the government side of it, that is have our benefits, have the ability to move, that's a totally different lane. Then you have in GovCon, you have large companies that I worked initially from a large company perspective. They have the stability that we were talking about, providing not only benefits, but the stability of work to move into a different side of it. And then the third sector is the small business. And I am the owner of a small business. Small businesses that have a different avenue where more creativity, I would say, comes in line with from that perspective. Some of those bureaucracy does not affect in the small business where we can do much of those kind of things very fast and very quickly and provide that kind of service to our customer, which is the government. It can be from government, it can be state government, but those are the things that we basically provide. So.
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback on that for just a second. I think that is so true, focusing on small and mid-sized companies. That's where I spent my whole career, is within that small. And I think that the opportunity to get to grow and learn in areas that may not be like a logical progression, but because you demonstrated value, you've shown you can deliver, and people know who you are, they're really out to give you an opportunity to spread your wings. And I really can endorse working for small and mid-sized companies. That's also a great place to start.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like some of my employees were or directly, like federal government comes in and say, hey, can we just hire them? And you're like, this is hard. Meaning they basically take it away from our resources and stuff, but they give them the ability to test that out, government side of it, sometimes looking into it, but they cannot hire. Small business comes in, providing that services. At the end of the day, they like them and they can be hired them into those kind of things. So it all depends. There's a lot of benefits working in those kind of areas that we talk about.
So Pilar, kind of piggybacking off of that, and my question, given that our audience members are students, what is kind of your entry level position, or how can a student kind of get their foot in the door to both either the federal or the contracting space?
I think that's where right now, I think somebody mentioned about technology is huge right now. From not only from the three sectors that I talked about, the federal side of it, the mids or large companies and the small business, they're all looking for very much more technology opportunities or jobs and stuff like entry level kind of thing. The best way, like some of what we were discussing before this meeting, was that if you guys have the ability to work as a contractor or as an employee in some of those agencies, or in a state government side of it, it would really help you to understand how to work in those kind of different sectors that we have. But coming back to the entry level side of it, for us, in my company as a small business, we like to have internships that we basically provide. They can come in and look into a different sector side of it, different areas that they can look into it. Like we have two interns right now working from the Morgan State University. They are coming in, looking into capture management and those kind of things, proposal writing. But they are also looking into some of those are interested in technology side of it. Once we group them, we basically ask them to stay if they can be opportunities in the contracts. Then we basically place them over there. Otherwise, they can go and find the jobs that are already in front of government. They are looking for right now so many opportunities that are out there, not only technology, but also in other fields of finance, accounting, proposals, because there's a big proposal shop in the federal government sector, but also they're looking for graduates over there. So I think it's all up to the individual what they want to do it. And one thing I would say that it doesn't mean that you have accounting and you cannot do another position that you can want to grow into those kind of things. It's all depends on the individual itself.
Yeah, so that's a great launching off point for sure. I would really encourage anyone who's looking at government contracting as a path for them while you're a student to look for internships with the government. I just read yesterday, actually, I mean, it's a huge bureaucracy applying for a government position. I'm not going to get into that. But USA Jobs, if you go, they've just now moved a whole sector of that site just for internship applications and internship openings. And so it's a great thing to go check out, usajobs.gov, I think it is, and go look around there, spending some time and they're paid internships, by the way. So spending some time getting into those summer internships while you're still a student actually could do a couple things. Pilar, you mentioned the security aspect. Pretty much any kind of work that you're going to do in the government contracting realm is going to require some sort of background investigation. It can go from, lower level public trust kinds of things, all the way up to high level clearances that you read about in the newspaper. And those processes are different. A differentiator for you and an opportunity to start, really ahead of the pack is to find a way to get cleared as a student. And then one of the best ways to do that is through an internship program. You can manage to do that one way or another. That will really give you a leg up when you graduate and you're looking to sort of start your career. Large companies, small companies do internships as well. You're not obligated to stay, although it's great when they can offer, but there's an opportunity maybe to take advantage of kind of a larger company's infrastructure and then apply it to a job in a smaller company. Like you can mix and match. That's okay too.
That's the clearance aspect is a really, really great point. It's such a powerful thing to have as you're looking to apply for jobs, both inside and outside of the government. I think on top of that, if you can also get a certification. And it doesn't have to, it can be specific to a technology or it can be specific to, project management or federal financial management. There's so many different certifications out there that honestly don't require a ton of hands-on experience. Obviously that would make it easier, but it's not completely impossible to do. You can take a class, you could, a lot of YouTube videos can get you through a lot of these certifications, but just, the study materials that are out there. You can put that on your resume, coupled with even, a tiny bit of work experience that just kind of shows your drive and that you're willing to specialize and look at and have some level of expertise, coming out of school. That'd be really powerful to have.
Could I piggyback on that for a second? So when you work for a government contractor and when you're providing support to the government, there's usually a structure for labor rates, right, per hour that your company will get paid for your efforts. And those things can be pretty rigid. right? And it's usually based education, years of experience, but sometimes certification can be an accelerator. So you might only have a year or two of experience, maybe none, right? But if you show a certification, you can maybe get bumped up to the next labor category early, and that will allow the company to pay you a little bit more. Because one of the things that you need to know with working with a government contractor is oftentimes, most of the time, compensation is driven by those contracts and by the labor categories that are that the company is paid for your work. And so making yourself more valuable in the marketplace can have a direct line to your compensation. And that's something that you have an opportunity to influence coming in. If you come in with a few things that help make you more valuable, like clearance, like a certification, like a little bit of previous experience with an internship.
We'll talk about like 4 things.
Oh.
So we're gonna go a little bit more. So we talked a little bit about the various different majors that are kind of common. Are there kind of more ideal majors for the federal or the government contracting side? All of these folks tend to be school of business students, but are there other things that they should be doing in terms of classes that they should be taking, minors, things like that? They feel will be very helpful.
I could go first. I think the federal government, they like to see, even if you are a major or you're a computer science major, it does not matter as long as you have a 4-year degree. The only part that we are talking about is that certifications. If you have a certification in cybersecurity or project management or those type of things, that will really help you in that getting into the career side. So it all depends on, but yeah, I mean, a 4-year degree can be from, I have seen our degree majors are programmers. I'm just telling you right now, and they are very good programmers. So it all depends upon where you basically your intent is to go in those things.
Yeah, I would say that regardless of your major, if you show some sort of credential around technology, that's going to be the boost, right? Because it's everywhere at an organization, as you mentioned, Nicole, it's so important being able to show that you have, you know, some not just the personal use of technology, but an ability to kind of handle and understand about systems in organizations. That would be great. Obviously, knowing how to write is essential. So whatever kind of degree you're looking at, making sure that you can articulate things well in writing, a little bit of public speaking, ability to present data, present information, and be able to do that confidently is also a plus. Because you'd be surprised how many times people will say no to those opportunities, but they're high visibility and they can get that kind of attention that creates opportunities to learn and grow throughout your career.
Yeah, I agree with everything both of you just said. So I'll take a more unique perspective on it. I guess I'm not just echoing, but I think if you pick your major, you're well down that road. You're kind of wondering, okay, well, what's next? I think a great piece of advice is to pick something very specific about your major, whether it's finance, whether it's management, and figure out how to apply that to real life situations and problem solving. Right? We're talking a lot about technology because that's that's kind of the it thing right now. And so figure out how can I take what I've learned and apply that to technology. Financial technology is a big aspect of technology, and having that background in management can be really value added. I would just make sure that it's not just, oh, I am this major. Okay, well, why is this major applicable to this role? Right? Or why is this major applicable to the career that you're looking to go into? And just have those kind of answers for those specific use cases in your back pocket to not only show that yes, I have my degree, I've taken the classes for this, but I've learned concepts that I can actually apply to real world situations. I think is a big way to differentiate yourself in the interview process.
Could I just piggyback on that, since that was awesome. And data is important, and companies post their job openings, right? And you don't have to do anything special. You can go to Lars company, you go to my company, you go to Salesforce, you go to Booz Allen, you can go, any Lockheed Martin. And look at the kinds of positions that they have posted. Those are mostly positions supporting their government customers. And you can kind of scan that and see if there's some things in there that are of interest to you. And then use what Nicole said to drill down on that, because you can look at those things and say, oh, look, I'm seeing every other one of these things is asking for some cloud experience, right? Oh, so maybe I can pick up, an AWS certification or an Azure certification or Google Cloud, like taking that data, doing that analysis about what's being looked for right now can give you some hints as to what you can do now to position yourself in the future. And that data is all accessible to you.
And for any student who is interested, we actually do have a government and government contracting minor. We also have a business analytics minor that you may want to consider. Just talk to your academic advisor. So we have an online question from a student, kind of directed a little bit more towards Nicole. Can you tell us a little bit of how your student athlete experience helped you in landing your position, or we'll kind of broaden it for any extracurriculars? What is the importance of extracurriculars?
Yeah, I think it's something I did not utilize well when I was here. One, networking, right? You have a very specific alumni base that is, for the most part, hopefully is really involved in the success of continuing athletes, graduating and finding opportunities. And I think tapping into that network is huge. Obviously, and I feel like I'm time management, right? That's a big one. We all know that you have your training. Honestly, the amount you're training per week surpasses the standard work week, right? And that's not including your classes, and that's not including your homework. So I think being able to tell a story about how you're able to balance these things, and then as you go into your first few years and postgraduate, you have all this free time all of a sudden. So you talk about that, I have all this time to get the certification, or I have all this time to figure out how to grow my brand. I think the last thing is have a story. So it's one thing to just say, yes, I play soccer at George Mason. Okay, well, why is that relevant to what we're talking about? When I first got out of school, I was working for GSA, and a lot of our projects were with the office of the president and the vice president. And I had all these Fulbright scholars and talking about their experience. And all I could say was, oh, I played soccer. That's not just it. That's not all I did. It's just, that's all I could say. So figure out a way to sell your brand and use your experience as an athlete to build that brand and make yourself marketable with the skills you've gained and again, not just athletes. I mean, any kind of extracurricular you have, figure out how to use that to build your brand and show why that has been a value-adding part of your emerging career.
Yeah, so I didn't do a lot of extracurriculars, but I did do my junior year abroad. I should mention that I went to the Foreign Service School at Georgetown, and my goal initially was to become a Foreign Service officer. I know, right? But they were the hiring freeze when I graduated, and so I had to pivot. But that pivot has become my career. So I would say that's another thing, right? Like, have an idea, have a plan, and then be prepared to pivot if necessary. But I will say that my experience of, going to Switzerland, taking all my classes in French, also having to, the canton where I was both that French speaking and German speaking, and it wasn't regular German, it was Swiss German. Like all of that, navigating all of that, living on my own for the first time, having to manage money with exchange rates and all of that, that gave me a lot to speak to my flexibility, my adaptability, overcoming challenges, right? And again, to your point, right? Finding a way to think about what you've just been through or what you do from the lens of the person who's trying to hire you. Like, what about that could be valuable to that? And then building a story around that.
I would just add to it, like pretty much like from a sports perspective, you learn the idea of loss or failure, right? That basically gives you the ability to rethink, lesson learned, put a plan put together. Like what we are talking about, and like don't disappoint yourself, like you applied for some internship and you didn't get it. And it doesn't matter. You have to refine yourself, right? See what's out there, the cloud and the security level or something like that, but it gives you the ability to move into that direction. And I think a lot of those extracurricular activities are very helpful in your personal life and how basically looking at those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, don't dishearten yourself. Like if somebody said, no, you have a different opportunity out there and you will be successful over there. So it's all depending on how you want to see that.
Just to add as we've been listening, the collaboration aspect of it too, right? The ability to work within a team. I mean, we all know, regardless of what you do, that working with a group of people and just think about your projects can be incredibly difficult, right? You have different personalities, different work styles. That doesn't end when you leave school or when you leave your team. That continues. You have to figure out how to manage these personalities. And so, if you had a lot of opportunities to collaborate, whether be a club or in class or on a team, use those to your advantage and figure out ways to insert yourself as a leader, as a voice of reason, to help drive the mission. That's a good aspect.
We have an online question here. We've mentioned a lot about certifications. I think we've talked Azure, Salesforce certifications, PMP. Can you speak a little bit more broadly, or maybe even mention a few other certifications that students could potentially look to get?
Well, I'll start if that's okay. So I really feel that any of the project management certifications, whether you're looking at accounting or PMP, also looking at the Project Management Institute, they might actually, I think now have an Agile management certification. I would definitely look at that. One of the things that's important to do as you're a student is take a look at those things now, because PMI does have some experience requirements in terms of applying for those certs, but that can be volunteer experience. So if you need a certain amount of time doing some sort of project planning or scheduling or things like that, that will allow you to successfully apply to get those certs, then you can kind of back into that and look for some volunteer opportunities that allow you to do that work. And then you can claim that experience on those certs. So I would say for me, initially the PMP was really important. And then I've worked with my last several companies, have been very much involved in commercial cloud implementation within the government. And while I'm not a technologist myself, I manage them, right? And so for me, like the AWS cloud practitioner, it's really important because it gives me the language, right? I don't need to know how to architect a solution using AWS services, but I need to be able to speak to the services, be able to generally understand what a well-architected solution generally looks like. And that gives me credibility as an executive in those roles. But it's a great thing to have even as a entry level or early career person, and it's a relatively straightforward certification to get.
So, for me, it's as a Exceed, we do two kind of things. We have a technology thing, and then we have other than education and training aspect of it that we provide. What I have seen, and I would encourage you all that not looking into only technology as aspect of it, but looking into other areas that you want to be successful. Example will be finance, accounting, maybe CPA is another one that you need to take it. Proposal management writing, if you are looking at, there's an association that provide that kind of certification to be a professionals. I think it's a professional proposal writer or something like that. All of those certification helps you to achieve that kind of goals where you want to go. If you are more in the real estate kind of an aspect of it, you need to get those kind of certifications and stuff like that. Yes, in the panel, we are basically pushing you to technology, but there are so many other avenues that you can get into those kind of fields that you are looking into it to grow into it. Because I think the audience mostly on the business side of it, I would encourage you to, if it's accounting, if it's a finance, if it's a project management, real estate, whatever that you guys want to be, there's associations that basically provide that kind of a certification for you to achieve that. And you can go online and look into over there, their requirements and stuff like that. And that's your plan basically, and then you can follow those. There's a lot of jobs over there within the community, within GovCon community that are looking for those kind of people and those kind of pushing that from that perspective. So I would encourage you to look into it, where do you want to go, and those kind of things. But again, one thing I would say that the GovCon is, if you can get a certification like a cybersecurity, like initial, like basic level certification, yeah, that will because that will be needed for any of the organizations that you will be going into. So, just throw that out.
I think, Lean Six Sigma, black belt, or sorry, I think it starts at green belt, so there are levels. That's a really valuable one I've noticed, across the board, whether you're in technology, whether you're in project management, whether you're kind of boots on the ground doing some of this stuff. I think that's a good one to start with. I believe, I wish I could remember the name, but I think there's a federal financial management certification out there as well that, one of my old colleagues was working to get. I'll get back to on that, but I think there is one. So those are, again, one that's, tailored to more business major. I work at Salesforce, so I'm gonna always promote the Salesforce certifications. If you ever want to get started in that realm, I started out with my admin, I think, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago. And that was my first experience on Salesforce. Now I build proof of concepts for the company. So I think the power of how certifications, regardless of what it is, can accelerate your career with just a little bit of experience is something that we can emphasize.
Kind of pivoting away from maybe technical skills, what are some of the softer professional skills that are really important in the federal or government contracting space?
Being personable, I think, is a big one. Understanding how to talk to customers, understanding how to talk to your teammates, understanding how to advocate for yourself. So communication in the broader sense, and just kind of, understanding what different lines of communication are and what they require.
I think that, yes, I mean, communication, right? I think that there's a couple of other things. I remember being, early in my career, being a woman in an organization that was predominantly male. So, and I'm talking in the 80s, so it's a while ago, but a lot of this still applies, right? So whether you are the youngest person in the room, or color in the room, or a woman in the room, finding a way to find your voice in a way that adds value, right, is really, really important. And finding, building relationships so that you can find champions and advocates and allies in the organization that will give you feedback, that will help you be articulate, that will help you be productive and effective. You were talking about modernization, Nicole, and there's so much of what our early career people are bringing into the work world, right? Into GovCon. I mean, it is no surprise. It's not a big secret that it is old, right? Especially within the government. And that a lot of times you'll see young people come in and then they pivot out because they see an opportunity in the commercial space. And so there's a ton of opportunity, and establishing yourself well by being adding value, being not being afraid to identify problems, accompanying that with potential solutions, right? All of those things are really important. So just that communication piece across those spectrums. Really agreed. Absolutely.
For me, it would be ready to change. Meaning there's so many things comes in, and modernization, there will be something else, AI, ML coming in and so on. So ready to change and open about those kind of things. I think that will really help you achieve where you want to go and stuff like that. So I think that I mean, you will work in 2 years, then you work in something else. There's just be open about those things.
I would just reiterate that, and don't be afraid to just say yes, right? Those sort of one-off things, right, can just create such incredible opportunity. I remember while I was working at a small company, this was after I left the government, it was, and this is personality driven, it was very siloed, right? It was the organization had 2 really intense leaders, and they competed against each other, which created silos in the organization. And People didn't go across those silos very often, right? But I ended up doing like a special project, a special committee, and it was formed by people from across the company, the customer facing organizations and the corporate organizations. And I did that within the first couple of years I was there. I was with that company for 14 years. I did more work across that company than anyone in the history of that company, because I built those early relationships and then I just kind of moved around. And I built a great career doing that. And it came from saying yes to a somewhat a short-term temporary like tiger team assignment. So say yes.
Yeah, that's a great one. I have this motto, and I don't want you guys to take it the wrong way, but just completely piggybacking on that, fake it till you make it. So don't go on your resume and, you know, lie about your experience, but if you're asked to do something that's not in your skill set, but you're pretty confident you can figure it out, absolutely say yes to it, figure it out, you know? You don't know what that will lead you, where that will lead you in 6 months, in a year. Don't be intimidated, don't have that imposter syndrome, you know, understand what you're capable of. Obviously, don't bite off more than you can chew, but you know, maybe put different food in your mouth that you're not as familiar with. I think that's a huge positive.
In a career wise, also, like when you get into that, from my perspective, what I've seen so far, majority of people change their career 3 times in their life. So if you were entry level, 2 years down the road, after that, where you want to go, change your career, whatever you can do, or help yourself, go to masters, whatever you need to do. I think that will help you to grow into those kind of things. So it goes not only from a work perspective, but how you plan yourself in your career.
I often say that my own personal career path is a spiral, right? It's not that it's a straight line at all, but I use everything.
Yes.
Everything that I've learned, I apply to what I'm doing, you know, right now. And so my career path kind of goes like that.
So we've talked a lot about kind of modernization and change. I was hoping you could share, what do you see as some of the major trends that are going to come and hit the federal and the government contracting side in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think from a technology perspective, machine learning, artificial intelligence, that is coming in. Cloud is kind of like some agencies are very sorry to say, is a very fast track. They are already there. Some are catching up. So I think technology is huge in modernization from that perspective. There are a lot of emerging technologies that they're looking into it from that side of it. So yeah, that's where I see it. That is more growing in our field from that perspective. So, and it can be anywhere from the IoT aspect, from the buildings and stuff, all because those are there related to what the mission of the agency is, environmental, you get the name and getting. So that's where I see the modernization is a huge thing right now.
I'm seeing a lot in visualization, data visualization in lots of different ways, right? Whether it's, we were talking a little bit about this, finding the narrative, finding the story in the data, but also using new technologies, gaming engines to use to 3D sort of digital twins, right? Is another, way to kind of represent entities in the electronic way that allows you to interact with them and then preserve the real world component. So thinking about ways to make data come alive, make information come alive in a visualization in a meaningful way for customers and mission partners and managers and leaders, right? That all have different requirements, but I think that ability to show, I think is going to be huge.
Yes, no, I agree with both of those sentiments. I think another aspect of it is I'm noticing a lot more that the financial side of things inside of government and the technology side inside of the government are merging. So, the CFO or whoever's overseeing a department's finances is very curious about where's all this money going? What's the ROI in it? Being able to use data to tell a story to understand that ROI. But I've seen these teams working a lot more together as these technologies, as these modernization approaches come in. So I would ask you guys, as you start to look at careers inside of government contracting or inside of the government, how are these modernized? What are the trickle down effects of these modernization efforts? And how can you insert yourself into that and maybe bring something that we're lacking? A lot of bottlenecks out of commercial, right? Our businesses working with the government is contracting, and as technology is evolving, contracting is stalling. It's really hard to say, keep up with the Joneses in that sense. So if we can have minds come in and kind of solve for that, I think that would be a big, again, a big way to differentiate yourself, and a huge need that is almost underrepresented on the federal priority list. Workforce, yeah, absolutely. We're consolidating.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It really is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And the idea of having people come in and, perfect for, school of business folks coming into that federal acquisition workforce where they're understanding kind of the compliance pieces, but looking at how to be creative and flexible and adaptable and agile within those, the oversight needs, right? That is so huge, and oftentimes the current acquisition, workforce is older and less and way, highly risk intolerant, and that does constrain innovation and constrains agility in ways that run counter to goals of modernization and all of that. So yeah, no, that's such a good point.
Before I ask my last question, I do want to ask the audience if you all have any questions for our panelists.
You're coming in, guys.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we do have one online question that actually feeds into my last question. But what advice would you give for students, just kind of, or something that you wish you would have known as a student now that you've kind of have your careers in the federal government contracting space?
For me, it's the power of internships and experience. And it doesn't have to just be through an internship. There are so many ways to get into industries that aren't, going on to Monster and applying for that job. Maybe it's working in a call center to, put a certain technology on your resume, like Amazon, right, on your resume that way, and take advantage of the training that provides you. But just figuring out a way to get some kind of work experience prior to looking for that, that entry level job. And that's, for me, that's the biggest piece of advice I could give.
I would, so this is a little more esoteric perhaps, but I would say, don't do it in the positive. Be very aware of the value that you're bringing based on your experience coming in as a person of your generation. And I think, working hard to find ways to present innovative ideas, without being kind of a pain in the butt about it, but because you are working with people with lots of years of experience, but you are bringing a unique perspective and finding ways to articulate that. I think for me, I wish I had maybe some allies and champions early on. I think it took me a while to get my feet under me and to find my voice. And I think I put up and could have added value more, right? Earlier in my career, if I had been able to kind of sit at the table and make suggestions.
No, very similar, meaning patience, looking at where you are, where you want to go, putting up a plan. It can be 2-year, 5-year plan. It really helps, and I think that will give you the opportunity to look into it that from that perspective and align what you want to do it from that, how to basically work towards that kind of a goal that you basically setting. But I think that gives the ability for you, if you want to do an internship or you want to go with government contracting or government side of it, it all depends on you and looking in those kind of aspect of it. But patient is speed, finish your college, getting into a job, entry level, it is basically the steps that you need to follow.
Again, this is my experience, just again, networking. So, after events like these, go find us on LinkedIn. I'm a little bit lower the totem pole than these two, so I don't mind the, the extra LinkedIn. Okay, just want to make sure I don't. Just want to make sure. Okay, so yeah, add us on LinkedIn and you go to these job fairs and you shake someone's hand. They might not remember it, so add them on LinkedIn with a little message reminding them, and then just make sure you reach back out every once in a while. So that, you're all of a sudden, 2 years later, finding that you're applying for a job, and you have this connection. It's not just, oh, hey, this job's open. It's, oh, we talked 6 months ago. How's your daughter, by the way? So networking and just making sure that you're staying in contact with those people that you establish those connections with, is awesome.
Yeah, and I would just add that one of the things that's really important is make sure you're keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date, right? Just a little tweak here or there is really important, but especially if you're connecting with one of us, we may not necessarily remember you, but we'll go look at your profile and say like, oh yes, have a good picture, that really represents who you are. And that helps too. But I think any one of us, who get, especially with students that connect with me, I'm always willing to try to connect them to someone else in my network or find, another organization that might fit a need for them. And I'm always happy to do it.
Kind of speaking on the value of mentorship, the School of Business, we actually have a mentor platform. It is Mason Mentors. So please kind of talk to Career Services to get learn a little bit more about how to connect with folks. Kind of talking about networking and mentorship. Can you just share kind of last, like how powerful is having a mentor or a mentor?
Well, I'll start, if that's okay. I think, so mentors are great. I would expand that, think about mentors, sponsors, champions, allies, right? Because sometimes a mentor relationship can be a little structured, right? And don't forget it can be two-way, so that there's value there. But connecting yourself, building relationships with your organization, so someone will advocate for you if you want a certain promotion or an assignment that you think might be a stretch that you could do. Allies, sponsors, champions, those kinds of relationships are a little more less defined and more based. It could be organizationally based. They could also span organizations, but I think that if someone doesn't say, oh, we've got this mentorship program, don't think you can't also create these other relationships that can give you feedback and help you move forward.
Yeah, I agree. I had two very pivotal mentors in my life. One was, I joined a company. It was my maybe second week, and they just messaged me. They were on my team. They're very senior on the team, and they said, "Hey, I'm going to put this one-on-one on your calendar every single week for the next 2 years. We're going to get you through certifications the next 2 years." And we checked in. He helped me study. He walked me through some of kind of the company politics to help me navigate that and become a champion for myself from more of a kind of hard skill technology perspective. But it was so value adding, and now I really understand how to study for these other certifications, keep myself honest. I'm also trying to pay that forward, so I'm doing study groups now, just taking people under my wing as he did for me. And the other has been more of a how to navigate my professional life and how to navigate my path to success and promotion. And I can't even weight one higher than the other. One, was again through a formal program, but she kind of went outside of the program guidelines. So don't be afraid to do that if you feel that they can be useful, advocate in different ways. And the other was just someone who had this done to him and paid it forward. Just, hey, you don't know that you need this, but you need this now, and here's what we're going to do. And again, both of those things have just been incredibly impactful in my career.
No, it's the same thing. I see mentors as not one or two. But they're all over I call them coaches, they're their coach. You not only you have a career, but you need to have for your personal also.
Yeah.
So they can help you to, because if you are not there, then you cannot grow, and your career will not be there. So you both needs to be work together. So you can have multiple coaches or multiple mentors. And the other thing is don't be shy to ask that person that, hey, can you be my coach or mentor? Can you guide me? There are a lot of people who will be open and help you from that perspective. In my career, whoever I asked, they were always available. They built my career based on their coaching. Sometimes they were personal, sometimes they were career oriented. So yeah, it'd be open. It can be your mom or it can be your dad or anybody can be helpful from that aspect. Yeah.
Great, thank you all so much. So Laura, Janine, Nicole, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Students, any questions that you may have, please email mycareer, mycareer@gmu.edu. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you at our next professional quest event. Thank you.
Thank you guys.